Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Yeah Right podcast. If you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any episodes. Here we are, guys. After over a year hiatus from the FCA podcast, we are back, and we are better. Unlike the 2020 Biden campaign slogan. I'm thinking we're back. We got new mics, new setup, got a couple less people, but it's still going to be high quality content. Got the green screen. Green screen check? That's pretty epic. We can put anything we want back there. So, along with the new name also comes some new changes, per se. Obviously, don't have the two other fellas, but I promise. Higher quality content, and we're going to start having more people on the podcast. We're going to do some more interviews. It's going to be pretty epic. So comment down below who you want to see on the podcast. But enough said about the future of the podcast. Let's move on to the important stuff, the meat and potatoes, if you will. So, as you guys know, Hamas is invading Israel. Not good stuff. John, I think the late G.K. Chesterton said it best when he said the disadvantages of men not knowing the past is that they do not know the present. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us, or could you give us a quick rundown about like the whole Israel-Palestine situation?
Okay, yeah, so to kind of start from the beginning, I guess, just something you need to know, a little background information you need to know. The land of Israel, also known as the Holy Land, has been inhabited by Jewish people for over 3,000 years, going back to around 1300 BC, whereas the term Palestine was used to refer to this land after the Romans conquered it and forced. There was basically a rebellion in the 2nd century AD, and the Romans basically destroyed the local Jewish population, and they renamed it Palestine after the Jews' historic enemy, the Philistines. So that's where the name Palestine came from. Then in, I believe, the 600s AD, Muslims took over the region, and ever since then it's been kind of a hotbed for conflict. I mean, it always was, but it has been a hotbed for conflict. It went through, it was inhabited by Christians for a while during the Crusades, and then Muslims took it over again, and the Muslim state continued to be called Palestine, but it wasn't really a separate state. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. Then obviously after World War I, it gets taken over by the British because the Ottoman Empire collapsed. And so basically the region of Palestine became a British protectorate. Jews started moving there from Europe to avoid pogroms, basically persecution in Europe. And they basically Jews started to settle in the land, and in 1948, after World War II and all the Holocaust, all that other really bad stuff that happened to the Jews, they decided to start a Jewish state in Israel in 1948, and ever since then there's been quite a few wars between Israel and surrounding Muslim nations. The region of Palestine was partitioned between the Palestinian Arabs, who control the Gaza Strip in the west, and the West Bank, also known as Judea and Samaria in the east, whereas the rest is kind of a Jewish state, but still has a sizable Arab population as well. So that's the modern state of Israel, and ever since the 1960s, there's been ever since Jews started resettling the land, there's been a lot of pushback from the local Arab populations who didn't want the Jews there and thought this was their land and not Israel's land. And basically, lots of terrorist organizations formed to oppose Israel, like the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Hamas, Hezbollah in the north on the border with Lebanon. Lots of different groups that want to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. These are terrorist organizations. The Gaza Strip is currently controlled by Hamas, has been since, I believe, 2006, when Israel removed their troops from there.
Somewhere around there.
Early 2000s. Israel removes their troops from there, and Hamas basically took over the Gaza Strip, and ever since then, they've been using it as basically a launching pad to shoot rockets into Israel, into Israeli civilian centers, and more recently, they did this big attack where they went across the border between Gaza and Israel and started killing a lot of Israeli civilians, going into people's homes, murdering them, slaughtering them en masse. These are normal civilians, and doing all kinds of other barbaric stuff. It's pretty bad. And now it's looking like this, because Hamas is supported by Iran, and so is Hezbollah in the north. It's looking like if Hezbollah gets involved in this war, it could escalate into a bigger, wider Middle Eastern conflict, I guess you could say, and could potentially cause World War III, because, Iran is kind of slightly on the same side as Russia, so if Russia gets involved, then this could get very messy. And Israel is a U.S. ally, so that could definitely make it make the situation very, very dangerous pretty quick.
I mean, we already have the USS.
I don't remember. I know we had 2 carrier groups over there in the Mediterranean now.
Yeah, I'm just saying, well, having a brand new high-tech aircraft carrier over in the Middle East, I'm just saying that doesn't look like not escalating.
Yeah, it's 200,000 tons of diplomacy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, another possibility of escalation, I think, albeit less likely, is, of course, if it spilled over into Pakistan and India, because the Pakistans are, of course, Muslim, and they might jump on the chance to have, a friendly little skirmish with India. And China also doesn't like India, so China might, they might have to take it upon themselves to do something like along the lines of a peacekeeping operation.
Yeah.
In India. And the United States, we'd have no choice but to get involved. We couldn't let the largest country in Asia fall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to compare it to the whole situation in Ukraine, because obviously that's a lot more different. Not a part of NATO. The whole Ukraine situation arguably is semi-justified, but I'm not going to come out and say that. But yeah, the last thing that we're going to want to see over in the Middle East is definitely escalation, because you go ahead and have Israel gets attacked by Hamas, pretty much drags in all of NATO, which will lead to Hamas and Palestine saying, "Hey, we need help. We got the United States, Great Britain, all those other pretty big countries backing up Israel." They'll be like, "Hey, China, I need your help," or "Hey, Russia, I need your help," or "Hey, Iran, I need your help," or pretty much any other Muslim nation in the Middle East.
Yeah. I mean, of course, Russia's been funding Syria for, I don't even know how, dozens of years probably at this point.
Yeah.
And Syria might as well be an Iranian or Russian client state.
Yeah.
And another thing to remember is Israel is nuclear armed, I believe. So I don't think they'd be very easily pressed into using nuclear weapons, but,
it could get bigger.
If push came to shove.
Yeah, it could get pretty bad pretty quick. I would say the thing that worries me right now, I'm not that worried about Hamas. Israel is going to go into Gaza. They're going to wipe out Hamas. There's probably going to be lots of people dying from that, collateral damage and all that. But Israel has that under control, I think. My real worry, though, is Hezbollah in the north of Israel, on the border with Lebanon. If they start getting in on this and they start escalating the war and start attacking Israel from the north, then you have a 2-front war, and then Hezbollah is more powerful than Hamas and could seriously cause some serious issues there. Israel would probably have to use its air force, and that would probably bring in other surrounding nations, probably Syria, probably Iran at some point, Iran coming in to support Hezbollah. So it could get very nasty very quick. All of this just because one big terrorist cell decided to invade Israel and go and kill a bunch of people. It's a really bad situation all around.
Okay, so leaving the Middle East, in the United States, obviously, this is a very divisive matter. You have organizations like BLM coming out in support of Hamas. Obviously, you have the notorious BLM Chicago Twitter post, X post of the guy on the paraglider holding the Palestinian flag, saying "We stand with Hamas." So obviously, it's quite a divisive matter. But it's not necessarily that everybody on the left is in support of Hamas in Palestine. Just like how people on the right, not everybody's in support of Israel. You have some people on the farther right spectrum. They tend to be more in support of Hamas and Palestine, just because it's a rather touchy situation with being in support of Israel. So my question is, why do you guys think it's such a divisive matter within the left and within the right?
I'll go first, I guess. I think the left is against, well, I shouldn't say the left entirely, but people on the left who are supporting Hamas, they see Hamas, I think, as kind of like BLM over here. Like, they see them as this like big, this resistance network against the evil colonizers.
It's the oppressed versus the colonizers.
Yeah,
that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and I mean, I think ultimately that comes from a very naive standpoint, but I think, and a very wrong standpoint, by the way. But I think the thing we're also seeing is there's lots of, in other countries as well, like in London there was a big rally in support of Hamas. In other places there's been big rallies in support of Hamas, which shows, I think what that is just kind of the, how would you say, kind of the showing that there's a lot of anti-Semitism all around the world. That's kind of behind the whole Hamas thing, and I think it's kind of it shows that this sort of hatred of Jews is kind of a common thing throughout the world, now.
Absolutely.
Well, I think on the right, obviously, the very, very far right, you have the conspiracy that the Jews control the weather, and the Jews control the banks, and the Jews control everything.
Right.
And I mean, those people are crazy. Mm-hmm. But I think on the far left you have two causes of this anti-Semitism. One, as John mentioned, is like the blue-haired, white university liberals who are out there in support of Hamas because they think it's this oppressed versus the liberators. They think that the Israelis are the colonizers and that Hamas is bravely fighting against this. But I think you also have like a lot of Palestinians who are in support of Palestine, and it's their ancestral homeland, but I can't help but notice that they don't live in Gaza. And I think that's a result of just mass migration. We're letting immigrants, wave upon wave of immigrants, come into our country. And if you're familiar with this podcast, I think we've talked about immigration before, and I'm a little bit more liberal on immigration normally. But I think if you're going to have immigration, you need to have assimilation and
legally.
Yeah, and legal immigration.
Because I mean, like during the summer, like the average month, what was there, like
oh my gosh,
almost 250,000 people
so
flooding through the southern border illegally?
So in the United States, we need to get our values straight, and we need to be teaching these immigrants' kids in school that America is great, and we're not commies.
Because communism bad.
But we haven't got that straight, so we're teaching. So these immigrants come over, and we're teaching their kids in the big city schools, along with the white liberals, that America is evil, America is racist. We're teaching this story, of the colonizers versus the oppressed, of this story of victimhood. You have the 1619 Project, that the New York Times, I believe it was, that said America was founded on slavery. That's its principal founding value. So, but again, I think those are the big two, that mass migration without assimilation, and then you have the universities just advancing this story of victimhood. And that's the left's driving political power is victimhood. They don't have heroes; they have victims.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they're seeing, they're looking at the left, not all of the left, but a lot of the people on the left are looking at Hamas, and they're seeing them as like this liberator force that's going to take over and free Israel from the Israeli government, or free Palestine, as they say. But that's, I mean, that is a completely genocidal slogan. And they talk about from the river to the sea, or Palestine will be free, or whatever. That's a seriously genocidal idea, because you're literally saying you're gonna wipe out you're implying that you want to wipe out every Jew between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean coast, which is just, sounds like I don't know, sounds like something Hitler would come up with, and I think a lot of the people on the left don't realize that they're just falling into very much the same sort of very genocidal mindset that the Nazis did, and a lot of other groups, like the Soviets, other groups like that were very very oppressive of people like Jews in their countries. I think there's a clear it's going in the same direction there.
Well, as Americans, we tend to always flock to a specific side when something happens, like, for example, BLM. People flock directly to BLM in support of them, or directly to against them. Obviously, it would have been right in that situation from the conservative standpoint to be against BLM, as well, for obvious reasons. The whole situation with Ukraine, people instantly flock to, okay, I'm either going to stand with Ukraine, or I'm going to go shoot off to the other side, because I don't want to go and get blown up in support of gay parades pride parades in Kiev.
Yeah, we're not gonna say on YouTube now, Zach.
Yeah. But yeah, as Americans, we tend to shoot off to one side or the other, and I think that's the problem in this situation. Do we need to necessarily say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stand with Hamas, or I'm going to go ahead and, without a doubt, put my support all in on Israel, or should we be able to sit back and just kind of see how things unfold?
I mean, obviously we need to unequivocally condemn what Hamas did.
Yeah,
they're terrorists.
That's exactly where I stand.
The primary interest in this conflict for America should be to contain the war.
Yep.
We need to say that Israel, you have the right to defend yourself. You can go in and level Gaza and obliterate Hamas. But, don't go invading Lebanon unless Hezbollah attacks you first. And we need to make very clear to Hezbollah, to Iran, that if they try anything, a little funnier than just the couple mortar shots they've been taking that will level Beirut, will level Tehran. So that's how we need to keep this war contained. And I think that the liberals also need to get it through their head that Hamas would gladly kill all of them.
Yep.
These, whatever they call it, bi-gender or I can't even, non-binary.
Yeah.
The transgenders and the non-binary white liberals who are the head of these Palestinian liberation student groups. They throw those kinds of people off buildings in Gaza.
Yeah, if I saw a post saying "Queers for Palestine" recently, and I was thinking to myself, if you guys were to be doing that in Palestine, you would almost certainly get getting thrown off a building is probably the nicest thing they did to you. Probably.
Yeah, I saw a Babylon Bee article, which is satire, as you know, and it was that it was Rashida Tlaib's Palestinian flag threw her LGBTQ flag off the roof.
I saw that one too. But I mean, it's very true though. Those people have basically nothing in common with your average person from Palestine.
Yeah.
It's very much people trying the leftists supporting Hamas. I think it's very much people who have no idea who Hamas is, going and rushing to support them because they're not Israel, you know?
So our final take for this episode on the Israel-Palestine conflict is that the actions of Hamas are condemned unequivocally. They're terrorists. They should be hunted down. But Israel doesn't get a blank check to go to war with whoever they please. Primary United States interest in this conflict is to contain it, to prevent its escalation. So we need to make it clear to all parties involved that we're not going to let it escalate. And if you try to get involved with somebody who's not involved in this war, or vice versa, say if Israel tries to invade Lebanon, or tries to take out Hezbollah while they're at it, or if Iran tries to invade Israel, we're going to be pretty harsh on both of them, because that's the only way that we can prevent this from escalating into World War III.
That's a wrap. Again, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any new episode. Thank you.